Who is the best versus competitor? This question comes around every once in a while, maybe sometimes, but a few times. It doesn't happen often, but when it does happen, it's a pretty interesting question. And so in this video, I am going to go over who I think is the best versus competitor. As recently as a few years ago, I started doing stat tracking across all of my verses, and I placed all of my competitors in a bit of a leaderboard to see who ranks the top of all of these competitors. And then just recently, in preparation of this video, I decided to go the extra mile and gather data of some of my community members' channels to see how they've done as well. Because maybe these people and the results of those verses might skew the results of it. So let's get started. Alright guys, so this is my versus stat sheet that you can access if you are in my server. Anybody in my server can access this sheet. And so let me give you guys a breakdown. There are two sheets here. One is this sheet, which is accumulating the stats of all my verses that I've done on my channel. And then the second sheet is accumulating the stats of all the verses of everybody's channels. There are a bunch of different columns. The main ones are score, average, and win rates. The score is basically you win a certain amount of points based on what your results were in a versus. If you place first, then you're going to get a lot of points, which is 3 points. Second place is 2 points, third place is 1 point, and then fourth place is 0. Now you might notice I am not ranking this by score, and I'm instead ranking this by average instead of score, because if I did this by score, then guess what? I'd be absolutely dominating the ranking boards, which wouldn't be fair, because I've been in every versus of my own channel. So I felt like average is the best way to put it, even though it's still not the best, because as you can see, 5 people on this list have been in only one versus and have won the only versus of my channel. At some point though, I do want to figure out how to rank this based off of ELO ranking, like what some of the competitive gaming communities have ranked their players on. And then of course we got the win rate percent, which is of course the percentage of their wins divided by how many verses that they have been in. And of course, the first 5 people, they have won 1 out of 1 versus, so they have a 100% win rate. Pretty skewed. So I created a new sheet in preparation for this video, and we have a bracket. We have 33 names across all of the verses of my channel, as well as some of my community members' verses. Of course, because there's an odd number of players in this bracket, 31 of these players have a bye into round 1, which means that these two here will need to fight for a spot in the top 32. And keep in mind here, this is all just my opinion, in case you happen to live in a household where the word joke does not exist. Okay, so round 0, the only round 0 matchup, we got Storm Striker SX9 against a community member who is banned across not just my community, but everybody's community. And I don't need to explain who it is and why they are banned. So by default, I am moving Storm up. Alright, and now we're getting into round 1. Let's see how this goes. Starting off with Chobo Mario against Storm Striker SX9. Now, Chobo and Storm, they have been in 1 versus. Both of these have not been in my channel for a very long time. Chobo was in the 3D Mario Relay back in 2017, and then Storm Striker was a part of my Pokemon Yellow versus that I did in 2013, so about 11 years ago. Now, they have never competed against each other, so I don't really know how they would fare if I put them in a versus together. Chobo has won the 3D Mario Relay, whereas Storm has got 4th in Pokemon Yellow, so I guess if this was based off of just stats, then I guess Chobo wins? I'm gonna just say that. This is kind of a hard one. Next up, we got Cameron versus CJ the Editor. Now, Cameron has been in 1 versus on my channel, and that is Mega Man, back in 2015. He placed 2nd, so he did pretty well in that versus. CJ, on the other hand, he has been in one versus, and that is on Jason's channel back when they did the Wind Waker, and he placed second out of the two of them. So we got 2 seconds. Although, because CJ's never been in my channel before, I don't really know much about his competitive experience. Might be a bit biased, but I think I might have to say Cameron, because his second place was pretty close. Next up, oh man, this is going to be a heartbreaker. There's a lot of heartbreaking matchups in this bracket when I took a glance at this. But the first of many that I'm seeing here is myself versus Golden Arbor WH, or aka Purpernitram, all the way from Bulgaria. This guy is my very first YouTube subscriber and my very first YouTube friend, and to this day I consider him my best friend on YouTube. But unfortunately, I have to vote between myself and him. Now, I could just be biased and say myself, but I gotta do this objectively. We've done, I believe, 3 verses together, which was Kaizo Mario World, A Link to the Past, and Super Mario RPG. I don't really like to think about Kaizo and A Link to the Past, because those verses didn't really get finished. But he has beaten me in Kaizo. I've won against him in Link to the Past, mainly because he forfeited. And then I won the Mario RPG versus. So naturally, I outrank him in stats. But Velen is a really good gamer. I feel like if I did a versus with him on some game that we both know a lot on, I'm pretty sure he would outrank me. But we're talking about currently, right now, but Velen, you are my best friend, and I really appreciate you, but I'm gonna have to say myself, man. Next up, we got Little Sa and Jason Matthew. Now, this is another heartbreaking matchup here. Oh, what am I gonna do with this? Okay, so Little Sa has been in 2 verses, and Jason's been in a lot on my channel. I believe Jason is the most active collaborator on my channel. These two have never competed against each other before. Little Sa has done Super Mario Galaxy 2 and Twilight Princess. 4th in Galaxy 2, but 1st in Twilight Princess. So this is a bit of a 50-50 in stats of my channel. Jason, on the other hand, has won 1 major versus, which was Wind Waker. He's won a couple minor races. That includes some bonus races. I will say he's pretty much all around in terms of stats. So while he has 1 win, but like a mixture of 2nds, 3rds, and 4ths of my channel, I'd say Alex outranks him in stats. But then we also have to consider that Jason has won a couple verses on his channel, such as Wind Waker, as well as Super Mario World. Now, Jason has told me that he has his own versus channel that he and his friends have made in the past, but he has said that he hasn't finished whatever verses that they were working on, so I did not include that in the stats. I'm including all the verses that have been completed, by the way. With that being said, that's 3 wins on Jason. For Alex, if we go to his channel, I saw that he has won Luigi's Mansion and Kirby's Air Ride. That brings them both up to 3 wins, so this is so 50-50. I don't know who I should pick here. Alex is a really good racer, too. Okay, I am so sorry, Alex, but I am probably going to move Jason up as of currently, because while you two are very much similar in terms of stats across all verses that you have done, I think I'm gonna have to put Jason up purely because Jason just has more experience. Next up, we got Video Game Master 22 and Yosher. Yosher was a competitor in J-Man's new Super Mario Bros. Wii, got 3rd out of 3 players in that one, Video Game Master 22. On the other hand, won the 3D Mario Relay. On the other hand, Yosher's never been on my channel, so aside from the fact that he got 3rd out of 3 in Mario Wii on J-Man's channel, I don't know too much about his competitive experience. So naturally, I'm gonna have to put Video Game Master 22 up front in top 16. Okay, next up is Axum the Goat formerly Chris Igor, versus the Grand Galaxy Master, all the way from Hong Kong. Oh boy. Now, Axum has retired from Versus 11 years ago, and the Grand Galaxy Master, I have not spoken to him in an extremely long time, but he has been in a Versus of my channel before, which is Smart RPG, placed second in a very close competition with Golden Armor WH. Axum, though, placed third in Kaizo, but won the Yoshi's Island Versus back in 2011. So this is a pretty tough one, but I think if I have to pick, I might want to say Axum, because Axum has slightly better stats than the Grand Galaxy Master. So I'm gonna put Axum up front. Next up is Costiller Affit 18 versus Tech Wolves. So these two have competed against each other before, which is Paper Mario on Jason's channel. I believe Costiller and Tech got second and third respectively out of 3. Tech has never been on my channel before, so with that, I don't know his competitive experience. However, I know that they have competed with each other directly, and Costiller did beat him before, so I will just put Costiller. Next up, we got Absolutia Zero, formerly known as Bryn 1100, and Retronika. So Absolutia has been in my Mega Man Versus before. He's done Mega Man's 1, 2, and 3. Got third in 1, second in 2, and first in 3. Retro, on the other hand, has been in multiple Versus and has placed pretty well on the Versus that she's been in. Did pretty well in the 3D Mario Relay, got third in Super Metroid, won the Super Metroid and Link to the Past randomizer, fourth place in Sunshine, and first place in Brawl. So that's one extra win over Absolutia. I like these two players. These two are very good players on my channel, but who do I want here? I guess Retro. Retro just has slightly better stats than Absolutia. I am so sorry, Absolutia. Next up, we got Hey It's Juice and Legacy Gamer HD. Now, Legacy Gamer, they went by a bunch of different names. I don't know what he is up to, and I don't even know if he even has a new name right now, but this is the last name that he has went by the last time I've worked with him on my channel. Juice, on the other hand, I have not heard from them in a long time either. If I had to pick between the two of them, I'd say Juice, because out of these two, Juice has a win on her stats profile. Next up, we got J-Man 155 versus Excelor, or formerly known as Knights in the Zelda, back when we did Puyo Puyo Tetris. Excelor got second in that one. J-Man has a bunch of seconds because a lot of his verses that he's been on my channel have been 2-player verses. He's also done verses with Jason with Super Mario World, placed second in that one. And then he also did a versus of his own, which was Mario Wii, and got first out of 3 players in that one. Now the hard part is that while J-Man does have a win, and Excelor has only gotten second in the only versus that he's been in on my channel, Excelor also has just a really good competitive resume, not even just on versus, but just in competitive gaming in general. So this is a pretty tough one to decide on. It's gonna be really close. If I had to pick, I am so sorry, J-Man, but I'm gonna have to pick Excelor. Just because Excelor just has a lot of competitive gaming experience outside of Versus. Next up, we got Rebel Vince versus Mega Wii Master 1. Now this one is tough, because Mega has really improved in some of the more recent Versus that he's been in, such as Kirby 64 on Multi's channel, as well as Super Paper Mario on my channel. And then currently, the Galaxy 2 Versus that's ongoing as of the making of this video. However, on the other hand, Vince has some wins off his belt. He's won pretty much every Pokemon Versus that I have done on my channel. Pokemon's pretty much Vince's specialty when it comes to Versus. On top of that, has quite a bit of competitive experience as well outside of Versus. Oh man, this is a pretty tough one to decide. I am so sorry. So sorry. I think I've said this so many times in this video already, but Vince. Next up, we got King J044 versus Mega Kid Icarus. Okay, now this one is interesting because the only time that these two have ever been involved together was the 3D Mario Relay, and these two are on the same team. So they've never had to directly compete with each other before. They both have one win on my channel. Mega Kid won the Super Metroid Versus, but then King J also has one win on my channel as well. Who do I pick on this one? This is pretty tough. Oh, but then if I have to dig into King J's channel, he's won 3D. Oh, he's won Galaxy 2 and Skyward Sword. Oh, that's right. How can I forget about those? So then, I guess in terms of stats, then King J? Let's put King J up front. Next up, we got an interesting one. We got Super Noah versus Vinny, my IRL former best friend. I haven't hung out with him in a long time, which is why I'm saying former. We're still friends, by the way. Super Noah was part of the 3D Mario Relay, did win it, and then Vinny, on the other hand, now Vinny's versus stats is very low in comparison to Super Noah, because Vinny's placed 4th in the 2 verses that he's done with me. But also at the same time, in the co-ops that we've done together, he's done really well. So there's a bit of a balance between the two matchups here. It's either really good versus stats versus really good just gaming stats in general. I might have to go bias and say Vinny, even though that probably doesn't make much sense. But that's because I know more about how Vinny plays more than how Super Noah plays, considering Super Noah has only been in one major project of my channel. So I'm gonna have to say Vinny, as much as that doesn't really make much sense. Next up, we got Eat More Pringles 2004 versus Seether Horde. Now, Eat More Pringles has done 2 verses, one on my channel, one King J's channel, 1st and 3rd respectively. Seether Horde, on the other hand, has been in Little Sa's channel on Kirby's Air Ride, placed 2nd on that one. Other than that, I don't know much about Seether Horde's experience. So I might have to be biased here and just say Pringle. Next up, oh boy, spicy one, Butter 101 versus Whatchamagivit. So these two have competed against each other before, which is on 3D All-Stars, with Butter ranking higher than Whatcha on that one. But also at the same time, Whatcha has more experience in versus compared to Butter. So that one's hard. And much like Mega, Whatcha has been rapidly improving in his experience with versus in general. Oh, Whatcha or Butter? Whatcha or Butter? I'm so sorry, Whatcha, but Butter has had a better win rate percent overall, so I might have to say Butter. Please don't kill me later, Whatcha. Alright, it's the final round 1 in the round of 32. Man, this is so exhausting. Multi versus Hayden. Now, what can I say about these two? So these two definitely have competed with each other directly before, with Multi beating out Hayden. But at the same time, though, Hayden is just really good at every game that he plays. The thing with Multi as well is that as a versus competitor, Multi is extremely consistent. He goes for like the safest strats and is consistent at every one of them. This might be very upsetting to a lot of people, and I hate to do this too, but I'm probably gonna have to say Hayden, mainly because Hayden is just really good at games and he's very dominant in the games that he plays. Alright everybody, so round of 32 is over, and now we're moving on to the round of 16. So, the first one in the round of 16 is Chobo Mario versus Cameron. Okay, so again, Chobo has 1 win, Cameron has 1 second place. Now, this one's pretty tough to make because these two have only been in 1 versus and they have not been on my channel in an extremely long time. But I will say that Chobo's win was pretty lucky, and then Cameron, on the other hand, his second place was very close during Mega Man. So I'm gonna have to say Cameron in terms of competitiveness. Next up is myself versus Jason. Okay, now this one's interesting because we got myself, who organizes a lot of different versus the guy who is probably the 2nd most active in terms of versus. So we're both pretty even, I'd say, but for different reasons. Jason has beaten me in 2 games, but for the many other games, I have outranked him before. Oh, this is so tough. Why are a lot of these matchups so tough? Okay, Jason's gonna be mad at me, but I will probably have to say me, because if we directly compare the stats directly with each other, then I'd say I have a better ranking overall. I will have to say myself. I'm so sorry, Jason. Okay, next up is Video Game Master 22 versus Axum the Goat. Okay, now, I know Axum better as a person than Video Game Master 22, so I may have to just say Axum. Next up is Costiller Aphid 18 versus Retro Nika. Okay, now this is a very interesting matchup here because the way these two play in the verses that I've been with them, these two tend to go for things that are very much hit or miss. And they either work or they don't. So this one's a very tough call to make, because if I put these two in a versus together, these two would be very much even. I know as of the making of this video, these two are currently working on a competition project together, so I'd be really interested in seeing that when that goes up. Because then I have a better understanding of how these two would play out if I put them in a versus together. Retro has been in more versus than Costiller has on my channel, but Costiller's done a lot of versus comparisons where he tends to respond to a lot of other people's verses, including some of my own as well as some other people's channels. But still, this is very tough to make. I might have to say Retro because Retro just has a overall better rank than Costiller. I'm gonna go with that. I'm sorry, Costiller. Okay, next up is interesting. We got Juice versus Excelor. Now, these two know each other directly, and they have competed with each other before, with Juice winning the Puyo Puyo Tetris versus and Excelor getting second. So naturally, I should pick Juice, but I will instead pick Excelor, mainly because I know what he's like in competitive more than Juice, and that's pretty much the only reason I'm gonna have to pick Excelor. Okay, next up is another interesting matchup here. Vince versus King J. Alright, now Vince has a lot of competitive experience, whereas King J has more experience in versus than Vince. They've never competed with each other before. If I were to put these two together in a versus, who would outrank them? I don't know. Okay, I have made a decision. This might be a very heartbreaking decision, but I might put King J up front. Because I know what he's gonna say if I decide to choose Vince over King J. And that is that King J has done more verses than Vince, and when Vince is in a versus with me, he tends to excel more at Pokemon than most of the other franchises. Okay, next up is Vinny versus Eat More Pringles 2004. Now, unfortunately, this is going to be kind of an easy one, and that is I'm going to put Pringle over Vinny just because Pringle just has more experience in versus than Vinny does. Okay, the last one in top 16 is Butter 101 versus Hayden Games 3. Now, this one is tough, because Butter's been doing really well in some of the more recent projects that he's been in, whereas Hayden in general is just a god. So it's either an up-and-coming newcomer versus just a god gamer in general. Okay, I may just have to pick Hayden. I know Butter, you do really well, but maybe just a bit more experience and maybe you'll be up there. Okay, and now we're in the top 8. So let's do this here. First up, Cameron versus me. Now, I have competed with Cameron before. We got first and second. It was really close. So if I really did have to pick, I would choose Cameron over myself. Cameron has only done one versus, and one versus isn't really enough to gauge what your opponent is like in terms of versus. They have to be in more versus in order to like have a better understanding of what the experience of versus is like. So I'm just gonna have to put myself. I'm so sorry, Cameron. You are really good at Mega Man, but you should probably be on my channel more. Okay, next up is Axum versus Retro. Okay, now if we're talking about currently, Axum is of course retired from Versus. He is really good at the games that he plays. But Retro on the other hand, yeah, I'm gonna put Retro. Next up is Excelor versus King J 0444. Alright, so Excelor has been in one versus, whereas King J has been in multiple. So this is really tough. They've never competed with each other directly before. Excelor or King J? Why is this so hard? I'm gonna have to say King J. Mainly due to the fact that he just has more versus experience than Excelor. Excelor, you're a really good competitive gamer, but I feel like you should be in more races. Okay, the final match of top 8 is Pringle versus Hayden. Pringle has only been in 2 verses, but I know, like, watching his Let's Plays, he's really good at the games that he does LPs on. Hayden is also just really good, but Hayden is crazy. Hayden has also done more verses than Pringle, so I'm just gonna have to put Hayden. Alright guys, are you ready for the semifinals? We got 4 more people left. This is to determine who the best versus competitor is. Starting off with me versus Retro and King J and Hayden. Okay. Now, Retro is more of a challenge player versus myself. And if I were to do more challenge verses, then Retro would definitely dominate over me. But because a lot of my verses aren't really challenge verses, they're more like how well can you go through a normal playthrough, I'm gonna have to pick myself. So I am in the finals. And on the other side of the semifinals, we got King J and Hayden. Ooh, now this one's tough. This one is so tough. Because King J is really good, but Hayden is also really good. Oh, King J or Hayden. I know King J has a better stat than Hayden in terms of how many verses that he's done, but I may have to say Hayden for once. Like, King J, I'm sorry, you are really good, but Hayden is an absolute god gamer if you decide to do a versus of him. Okay. Finally, the be-all, end-all, who is the best versus competitor between myself and Hayden. If we think about this for a moment here, I have beaten him in Mario 64. He has beaten me in OOT. I've beaten him in both Pokemon Red and Gold. He has beaten me in Sonic Adventure 2. So, I outrank him with 1 versus by 1 win. But if we were put in a situation where we were racing most other games, I would probably have to say Hayden. So, there you go. So, there we have it, guys. We have our best versus competitor. The best versus competitors of this community is Hayden Games 3, myself, Retro Nika, King J044, and these other 4 players in the top 8. These are the best versus competitors in the world, and it is not up for debate. Let me know what you think of this bracket, and if you think you have different results than me, then feel free to let me know. I would like to hear your opinion on the best versus competitor in general. Versus is a lot of fun to do, and it's really fun to hang out with all of these awesome players. And maybe someday down the line, I can make an updated version of this video where we have even more players, and also some of these players just get better stats within their ranks. So, with that being said, thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you guys in my next video.